Hey everyone, welcome to Farm Day Adventures, the Corn Edition. My name is Paige Lilley and this is Dylan Lilley, and we are both extension agents with NC Cooperative Extension. In the coming weeks, we're going to be covering a variety of crops that are grown in North Carolina and talk about how they affect you, yes, you, even during COVID-19 when you're at home. I think you'll be surprised to learn that corn is actually found all around you, even in your house. So our learning objectives for this presentation are that, one, you recognize the vast usages of corn, not just in North Carolina, but across the United States. And then also we're going to do a fun activity using cornstarch, which is one of the byproducts of corn. And we're going to learn about what the difference is in a Newtonian and non-Newtonian fluid. So we can get into that a little bit later. All you'll need is cornstarch, water, and a bowl. And like I said, I'm Paige, and this is Dylan.
So corn is a really important crop for both the United States and particularly for North Carolina. So soybeans are the most produced crop in North Carolina, but corn is right there at number 2 behind soybeans. So last year alone, North Carolina farmers grew 930,000 acres of corn. So you might be wondering, well, what is an acre? So an acre is a unit of land size, and you can think about a little bit bigger than a football field. So almost 1 million football fields worth of corn were produced in North Carolina last year. From that corn that was produced, there were 100 million bushels of grain that was harvested from that corn. So what is a bushel? So a bushel is a unit of measurement for grain, and 1 bushel of corn equals 56 pounds. So that equates to roughly almost 6 billion pounds of corn that was produced in North Carolina alone last year. So you might be thinking, whoa, that's a lot of corn. Do we eat all of that corn? Is that what comes from popcorn, chips, corn on the cob? Well, no, not exactly. So in North Carolina, we typically plant corn in the month of April. And corn grows pretty fast, so by the month of June, corn is about the size of your average second grader. And then by the month of July, it's even taller than legendary basketball player Shaquille O'Neal, so about 7 to 8 feet tall. So then around the month of September is typically when we harvest corn. So after we harvest corn, we have all that grain, and then it goes into different processes. So if you look at this picture we have here, so this is for the United States. So as you can see, most corn goes to feeding livestock. And that holds true in North Carolina too. In North Carolina, we raise a lot of hogs and a lot of chickens, and then we have cattle as well. So most of our corn that's raised in North Carolina goes to feeding those 3 livestock. So next we have corn is also used in fuel for vehicles, so it goes into ethanol production. And then lastly, corn is used for food products. So corn can be turned into flours for things like chips, even for things like cereal. And then corn is also a sweetener and can be used we found in products like Little Debbie cakes. And then, I don't have our soda here. So that's just a few examples of corn that we have. And then lastly, we have cornstarch, which is a major ingredient in a lot of our cooking. So Paige is going to go into what we can do with cornstarch next.
Yeah, so corn is a sweetener, like Dylan was saying. It's in almost all of the sodas that you drink, but it's also in like popsicles, ketchup, candy. You might not have even known that. It's also in hand sanitizer, diapers, crayons, and even toothpaste. So if you look around your house, I think you will be surprised at how much corn you find. It might not look like an ear of corn, but trust me, it is all around you. One of the byproducts of corn that we're going to talk about in particular is cornstarch. So it's used in baking. If you like pies, then you like cornstarch. Cornstarch is interesting because it has some different characteristics about it. So I kind of encourage y'all to look at that handout that we included with this lesson. We're going to talk about cornstarch and do a fun little activity. So this is part of that handout that I was talking about. So cornstarch is has some interesting characteristics. And so let's just kind of put this together really fast. I have the ingredients here. So cornstarch, water, and a bowl. So if you add about 1/4 cup of cornstarch, and then you slowly add water, you don't want to add too much. A little tip is that once it kind of starts to act hard when you touch it, that's a good indicator that it's formed, which is kind of has to do with the physics properties that we are going to be talking about later. So I think I've got mine mixed to where it kind of feels about right to me. So what you want to do is grab it, and your hands are going to get a little messy, but grab it and try and form a ball with it. And you can kind of form a ball, but when you let your fingers lay flat, as you can see, it runs through your fingers and acts like a liquid. But when you grab it again, it will harden back up into a ball, and then it will flow through your fingers. So you might want to do this outside like we are, since it can create a little bit of a mess. So we're going to talk about why that happens. So there's a physicist named Isaac Newton, hence the name a Newtonian fluid, that's where it came from, who discovered that most liquids act like liquids. So like no matter what you do to water, no matter how much force you apply to water, you can grab it in your hand as tightly as you want, but it's still going to be a liquid. That is an example of a Newtonian fluid, a liquid that always acts like a liquid. However, a non-Newtonian fluid usually acts like a liquid, but if you apply pressure to it and compact the particles, it might actually act like a solid. So when you mix cornstarch and water, that's an example of a non-Newtonian fluid. So to talk about a few little questions that have to do with that are, what do you think, what are some other uses of corn? So this is when we kind of want you to look through your house and see how corn can be found all around you. Treat it like a scavenger hunt. And then why do you think that cornstarch sometimes acts like a liquid and sometimes like a solid? And we kind of talked about that earlier.
So in review, we hope you recognized just the vast usage of corn that comes from the United States and North Carolina. And then also we hope you learned a little bit about Newtonian fluids and non-Newtonian fluids, which is a property of cornstarch, which is a byproduct of from corn. So we hope that you join us next time for Farm Day Adventures,
the potato edition. Bye, guys.
See ya.